Apparently, Xbox had by far the best game showcase we have seen so far in 2024, whether that be the Ubisoft Forward event, the PlayStation State of Play, the Summer Games Fest. Xbox, Microsoft, whatever you want to call them, has by far blown us away with a ton of games in this showcase. I think there were more than 20 if I had to count. But for today, I just want to talk about some of the best games and what this means for Xbox. Are they headed for a revival? Are they headed towards a death with just great games on the horizon? What's going on with Game Pass? Is it going to be profitable for Xbox? And what are the state of the new consoles look like? I mean, is Xbox going to develop more consoles? Why didn't we get an announcement there? And what's going on with the handheld? And surprisingly, there's actually more information for that. So I thought I'd make this video real quick, kind of run down all of the games that you should be looking towards near the fall, and especially for 2025, maybe even 2026. And then obviously kind of talk about some weak points here and why I'm still concerned for Xbox. So let's go ahead and do this. So the first game shown in the showcase was no surprise whatsoever. That is Call of Duty Black Ops 6, obviously being developed by Treyarch yet again. This is actually the first title in the Black Ops series that has taken 4 years in development. Now, this is kind of small detail, but also at the same time, it has created a lot of detail in this game. They've given us, for instance, Omni Movement, the sort of system where you can slide or dive in any direction, creating a lot of creativity, if you will, in the campaign and obviously in multiplayer. And personally, I love this. I think this sort of aspect is overlooked in a way. If you guys have played a Call of Duty game in the last 1 or 2 years, a lot of aspects from Fortnite has sort of come to the series, and I don't like that. When you're playing multiplayer and you see bunny hopping or some sort of ridiculous head glitching, things like that, I feel like this is a good way to counteract that. Sort of give some more options to rookie players who are going up against veterans, especially when there's really no honest matchmaking when you're going up against tough competition. I think this is a good way to sort of balance that out. Another thing which really didn't catch me off guard was the 3-lane maps. I think they talked about this for a few minutes after the showcase. I don't get it. Because with 2023's, obviously Modern Warfare 3, you had all of the maps from 2009's MW2. They're all 3-lane, and so I'm not really supposed to be impressed after the last game had 12 of the same maps I have seen before a decade ago. However, the fact that they are original, 16 maps that we haven't seen before, is much needed. Much needed. I really don't think that Infinity Ward is that great at creating maps, and so for Treyarch to step in and say, hey, let's try it. Let's give you 16 original ones is kind of refreshing, to say the least. No one talks about this, but there was no mention of Warzone. Thank God. Now, they did say that they are going to mention it in the next Call of Duty showcase, if you will, or event in, I believe, August. I think it's August 28th. And so if you are interested in that, great. Go ahead and play it. But I'm just so sick of the cosmetics in Call of Duty. And just to hear about, options and gameplay and story, it's probably the first time we've actually had that in our first big reveal in Call of Duty for a long time. I mean, typically they talk about Warzone or cosmetics, and if you can transfer your cosmetics, I get that some people, spend money on that and they spend hundreds of dollars on that. But for people who don't, it's just like, I just want to play a good $60, $70 shooting game, to be honest. I mean, I like X Defiant, but I'm really hopeful for Black Ops, and hopefully that gets me to stick to some sort of franchise in terms of a first-person shooter. Now, call me crazy, I believe the second best Xbox exclusive was Avowed. Obviously, we've heard about this for the last few years, coming from Obsidian Entertainment, who has worked alongside essentially Bethesda's old titles. I mean, they've said that this is going to be Skyrim, like their own version of Skyrim, coming off of Bethesda's own work and sort of having inspiration for their own. Their last title in 2019 was The Outer Worlds, a very colorful shooter, as you guys can remember, sort of their own Fallout. And I know that they said that they want to make their own Skyrim, and it seems like they've done this perfectly with Avowed, and it looks great, full of fantasy, full of sci-fi, and it's also in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity. So this is a really unique blend, something really original that Xbox needed. As we know, Obsidian is no rookie in terms of developing games, and so it seems like it's releasing on November 12th. That is the leaked release date. It was in one of their blogs, I think a few days ago, but they've at least removed that. Maybe they have a trailer planned for the next few months, maybe to officially reveal the date. But really excited for November 12th if that's the case, because I believe that this game is going to sell a whole lot of copies for Xbox, and they definitely need a game that does that. So probably the biggest game that stole the show, of course, in my list of my favorite games that I've seen so far in the showcase is Perfect Dark, being developed by The Initiative, built by former Crystal Dynamics studio head Daryl Gallagher, and several others on the team come from Rockstar, Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, and Insomniac, obviously the creators of Spider-Man there. And so there's a lot of talent on this game. For me, it kind of reminded me a sort of mix of Mirror's Edge and Metal Gear Solid. You had a lot of stealth there. There was a whole, thing going on with the audio where you can pick up audio from enemies, sort of understand their location, where they're going, what you need to do in terms of the story missions. That's really fantastic. I love the graphics here too. There's so much gameplay to soak in. I swear I've seen this trailer about 4 or 5 times now, and I can't tell you how many times I actually want to see it more. So I'm really excited. However, there are some doubts. As you can see from most of the trailers at the very end, we have release dates. For this, no, we don't. And so it makes me think that this is probably set for 2026. They're just scared to tell you that, the initiative was built to make this game. It was founded in 2018. And so for them to take, 8 years to develop this is a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it seems like the process is coming along. My biggest question is there going to be multiplayer? As we know from the remaster and from the original game, there was multiplayer inspired by GoldenEye 007, and I'm just really hoping that we have some multiplayer there, because like I said, we don't really have a lot of great FPSs on the market right now. And so if Perfect Dark can do that, not just that, but also be an Xbox exclusive, this is going to make a lot of Xbox Game Pass subscribers. That is for sure. So another big shocker, and I swear this whole thing is full of shockers, is the fact that we got a gameplay trailer of Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. If you guys are big historians in the video game industry, you would know that Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater is actually a original game from 2002 that is now being remade into Delta. Delta, in a sense, means change, hence the title name. They also added a lot of modernization to the title. Things like a new third-person camera, a new controller layout. It was really interesting, and as we also know, this is a decision to remake Snake Eater because it's an origin story of Solid Snake. That being said, this could probably mean that we are getting multiple remakes of older titles, maybe even a new title. But keep in mind, this is the first Metal Gear Solid mainline title without Hideo Kojima. And so this makes me a little nervous still. I mean, great trailer, great trailer. But at the same time, what is Konami without Hideo? So we're finally going to see that, and I'm super excited. At the same time, it releases later this year, so we're going to know very soon. Hands down, if I had to give an award to the best trailer in the Xbox Game Showcase, hands down, Fable. This is essentially a remake of the franchise, a reboot of the franchise, if you will, and holy cow, what a reboot it is going to be just based off of the trailer. Maybe I shouldn't get too excited, but we actually saw some gameplay as well. So essentially with this trailer, we get the idea of Humphrey. This is a retired hero in the world of Albion. This is where the game's going to take place, and while he's talking, while he's narrating the definition of a hero and what you should be, it's showing us this gameplay of this really lighthearted, friendly girl, assumably the character that we're going to play as in this new Fable reboot. She's taking down enemies, learning how to use a bow and arrow. You can definitely see these two bond. And while he's talking about not just the definition of a hero, he's also talking about a girl. Now, we don't know if it's the girl in question being shown, but he keeps talking and then saying how she took a dark turn and how as a hero you shouldn't take these turns. And then we see footage cut to the lighthearted girl, if you will, the girl in the gameplay, come into the room and say she's back. As it says in the Xbox blog right after the showcase, it said that you're essentially will be battling a mysterious figure. So clearly, my idea is that Humphrey will be battling along with this Padawan, if you will, a previous Padawan, a other girl that essentially went dark, wanted to be a hero but essentially went dark. So definitely going to be playing this day one. It's going to be releasing in 2025, so we have a release window, thank God, finally, after years and years. But also bigger news, this is developed by Playground Games. We already knew this beforehand, but this will be their first non-Forza game. This is the studio that is well known for mostly all of the mainline Forza games, which is a huge shock because it hasn't developed anything along this sort, just racing games. And a huge thing is it's also getting support from the developer who made the Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, that game was actually developed prior to them losing 97 people who were laid off earlier in 2024. So, going to be really interested to see how those two studios mesh together, especially because this is actually the first Playground Games developed title without their co-founder and studio director Gavin Rayburn. So really interesting, really interesting turn. I am surprised that a racing studio is making this game of all games, but hell, they do a heck of a job with every title that they made so far. So Fable 2025, mark your calendars. And speaking of studios that have somehow decided to change course rather than relying on older titles that have sort of paved the way for them, Rebellion, they are turning away from the Sniper Elite franchise, surprisingly enough, and sort of making a Fallout-esque game called Atomfall. This is an RPG set in the mid-20th century of Britain with aliens and robots. We see caves in the trailer as well. This is a post-nuclear Fallout, so like I said, actual Fallout-esque kind of RPG there. But that's going to be releasing in 2025. We've also heard about all of these leaks in terms of Doom, and yes, we actually got another Doom game in the works coming in 2025 as well, coming to Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5, thank God. Developed by id Software, Doom The Dark Ages. This is going to be a prequel to 2016's Doom. So this is a super wild trailer. If you haven't seen it yet, I think out of all of them, I would highly recommend you watch this. We have Doom Guy riding a dragon. We see him actually get a shield as well, which is one of the very new weapons that were shown off. We also see a shotgun-esque thing, maybe a machine gun of sorts, where he's actually using skulls as ammo and shooting it at enemies. Typical just Doom fashion. Now, I'm going to say the most pleasant surprise, please, if you haven't looked at this yet, take a peek at it. I'm not saying pre-order, I'm not saying buy the game right away, but definitely want to give these guys support in any way. Maybe follow their social media accounts, whatever it is. Sandfall Interactive, they have showed off Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. This is probably the most original game we have seen yet. An awesome storyline too, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it off of the Xbox blog. Expedition 33 opens in the city of Lemire, the last city of humanity where everyone knows the age when they will die. Once a year, the paintress wakes and paints a number on her monolith. This number represents an age, the age of everyone who will soon be erased. Year by year, this number ticks down. More people die, and an old age is not so old anymore. Soon the paintress will wake again and paints 33. Condemning everyone of that age to a gentle death. But with only 1 year left to live, the members of Expedition 33 embarks on a journey to destroy the paintress. First off, amazing storyline. I really love what Xbox is doing here. I think this is coming to PlayStation 5 as well, but I really wish it wasn't exclusive because I think Xbox needs more of those single-player narratives. I hope we get that with Perfect Dark, and I hope we get that with a few others I previously mentioned. But honestly, what strikes me the most is, and I actually saw this on Twitter, finally an RPG turn-based game with no high school setting and no jazz music. This is just fantastic. I love the French tone to it too, the French setting. I think that's unique. We haven't gotten that in a lot of games. And their creative director as well, he has previous work on The Division as well as Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It can be fairly unique, and this is one that is, I guarantee you, is going to take a lot of people by surprise come 2025. But as great as the showcase was, there were a few duds, or at least ones that really didn't get their presence across. A few that honestly I just thought to myself, why were you even at the showcase? I think you probably should have taken a little bit more time to show yourself or to work on a trailer. And the first title that comes to mind is Dragon Age The Veilguard. First and foremost, I don't even know what this name is. I'm not a fan of it. It makes no sense. It really has no power. This game was previously known as Dreadwolf, if that rings any bells there, which is definitely a cooler name. Talks about essentially the antagonist if you've been following the games, and so I don't know why they decided to switch. However, also, if you have been living underneath a rock, this is being developed by BioWare, and this has been in development since 2015. Other games they have worked on, the last one was 2019's Anthem, and obviously we all know how that went. Previously, that was Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017 as well. And surprisingly enough, this is releasing this fall. Like I said, the trailer just did not surprise me. It didn't shock me. It didn't make me want to pre-order. It didn't even make me, honestly, to want to play this game until maybe after the review scores. It's just one of those. And despite the trailer's shortcomings, of course, BioWare had a blog after where John Epler, the creative director of Dragon Age The Veilguard, said, BioWare's storytelling roots shine through every chapter of this adventure. We are incredibly excited for Dragon Age fans, as well as those new to the series, to experience this crafted, character-driven narrative that is so intertwined with our studio's DNA. Now, as we know, the DNA has sort of been a little messy with Anthem and Andromeda. It's just so strange. I just felt like every trailer had a punch to it, at least, for a majority of the games. And this one just to show off 7 companions rather than gameplay, rather than talking about what makes this Dragon Age so great compared to others. Just a really odd tone. So yeah, that's Dragon Age The Veilguard. But if you've seen gameplay and you like what you see there, then by all means. So yeah, let me know what you think of that for sure. So another game I'm weary of, and I know I'm gonna get flack for it, and I'm super sorry. But if you have played Gears of War, E-Day took me by surprise. Developed by the Coalition, as expected. This is a mainline title, but it is a prequel to the original game. We get our first looks at young Marcus and Dom, 14 years before the original game, of course. Great homage, though, to the original game with Mad World being played, at least it's instrumental in the background of the trailer. Stunning visuals, of course. There's no release date. It's probably going to be on Xbox Series, though. I wouldn't be too surprised if it came out before 2026, so probably 2025 if I had to guess and just predict, considering all the rumblings that we've had these last few years regarding the Gears of War franchise. Now, there are a lot of question marks regarding the franchise itself. I mean, in the last game, there's a cliffhanger, there are some plot holes, there's a lot of things to be answered, and so to not get a sequel felt a little disheartening. But creative director Matt Cersei did explain himself after the show and essentially said, "Why E-Day? That's the moment it all comes together. It's the heart of the Gears universe. Everything that happens is shaped by this day. Gears of War E-Day is, without a doubt, an origin story, and not just about the Locust, but for the original heroes that players have come to know and love throughout the years." Now, I understand the approach, but it just doesn't make sense. I just feel like with Xbox lacking for so long in terms of quality titles, I just felt like a sequel would have been such a solid comeback for the brand itself, especially for new people who want to, I guess, jump ship, go from PlayStation to Xbox. But at the same time, that does sort of fit a prequel. Are they rebooting the franchise? I don't know. I don't know what their plan is here, but it's just a questionable move. Now, overall, if it's a great game, no one else is going to question it. They're just going to play it. They're going to enjoy it. And they're probably going to enjoy the multiplayer as well. Now, we didn't get looks at this, but I guarantee you probably by the end of this fall, we probably will. So, yeah, that's Gears of War E-Day. I can't go without mentioning one last game that I'm just on the fence on. I'm not worried about it. I'm not, too excited about it. But Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn has kind of got me mixed because it's done one of the biggest pet peeves that I have hated in gaming for, I guess, like the last decade. And that is to pronounce itself as a Souls-like. It did this in the trailer a few times. And I was just like, okay, like you're trying to get your point across, essentially saying that you're like Dark Souls. You're like Dark Souls. Please play our game. We're like Dark Souls. Come on, guys. I just don't like that. I just feel like it's pandering. I feel like we've heard that so many times, whether that is in games media, from games journalists, or just from companies themselves. And so that was an annoyance. However, if you do sort of look into this game, it really does have an interesting plot where you'll be playing as Norvanik, a member of a coalition who must save mankind from extinction by fighting against the old gods, whatever that means. The open world of Flintlock is divided into 3 different regions. Players can partake in adventures, which may change the state of the game's world and its population. For instance, killing the enemies in a village will prompt its original community to return, thus unlocking new quests and side content. And it's actually coming super soon, too. Surprisingly, July 18th of this year. So in just over a month. Also developed by A44 Games. If you guys don't know them, they have previously made Ashen in 2018. That arrived to mixed reviews. I think that had a 78 overall on Metacritic. So hopefully they are hoping for a little higher with Footlock, The Siege of Dawn. So aside from these great games and the games with the question marks around them, I do think we did spend a little bit too much time on the live service games and I guess the games that have been previously released in the last few months or so. Diablo 4 comes to mind for sure, sort of the recovering the story in terms of that DLC that is releasing soon. When it comes to being Xbox, especially the Xbox Game Showcase, where this really had to be a big one to sort of save the brand, I just don't know if it was worth spending, 5-10 minutes on a game like Diablo 4 or Starfield where, their player base really isn't that big on Xbox, but I get that they're on Game Pass and so you're kind of trying to push people in. So sort of an odd thing that they did. I don't know if I would do that personally if I was Phil Spencer, but just one little gripe I had. And another big shocker here, no handheld. We had reports previously that the Xbox Game Showcase would show off a new Xbox handheld where you could play locally. Essentially, that means that you could play downloaded games. You wouldn't have to stream, but you would have, if you wanted to, the option to stream. There was rumors about that being revealed. But instead, we got upgraded versions to current consoles, which is sort of a mystery to me. They're not like an Xbox Pro-esque kind of like, you can play at higher frame rates, higher resolutions, nothing like that. This was the Xbox Series S and X, essentially getting just larger storage. Now, why tease these? Why even market these? Why even get these out? Why even create them? I don't know. That is just Xbox being Xbox. I think it's just to, have something on the shelves for this Christmas. That makes me, I guess that the handheld won't be out by then. If I had to guess, maybe 2025. Maybe it wants to rival the Nintendo Switch 2. That's just my guess. But Phil Spencer did not stop there with the consoles. Now, after the show, he got in touch with IGN and he told them that if he was to create a handheld, that would be pretty good for Xbox, first and foremost. And he also said that if he was to create a handheld, he would want to play locally, have downloaded games. Now, look, I'm not business savvy, but if I am heading a company, I probably wouldn't be putting out these clues unless you have, something to show for it. And my guess is they probably will in the coming months. He did sort of tease that they were going to have some sort of showcase for a device like it, maybe within the coming months. But yeah, I can definitely leave that link down below to that article from IGN. So really interesting tidbit there. And to have an Xbox handheld would be huge, 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 huge to market within the next, I would say, maybe 12 to 24 months, especially with this massive lineup of games, and if they turn out as great as we all think they're going to be. Now, for my overall conclusion on this show and what this is going to mean for the Xbox brand, as a whole, honestly, if you just watched the showcase and if you didn't even know who was leading and falling behind in the video game industry, you probably would have thought that Xbox is an absolute juggernaut that just can't be stopped. From my count, more than 15 games could single-handedly be smash hits within the next year from this showcase. From the new Doom to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which will be the first to launch on Game Pass, the eventual release of Perfect Dark, and sleepers like Atomfall and Expedition 33 surprising people. This showcase of games has a major chance of reviving Xbox and putting that brand into the good graces of the video game industry again. That said, there are some thoughts I just can't hold back on. For one, Xbox has certainly had several excellent showings in the last decade, but there's never been a single year I can point to and say they've absolutely crushed it in terms of first-party game quality. That's because I look back and I see a wide number of games shown at these Xbox shows in a single given year, but a handful of them ultimately fall short of expectations. Although I don't want to believe that 2024 and 2025 will fall into that same trap, I look at recent failures spanning from, Hellblade 2 and Halo Infinite, and Redfall is exactly what I described. Heck, each of these games I just mentioned also had great showings in years past with excellent trailers, mind-blowing trailers, but then they end up bombing and sort of burning the brand's reputation. So ultimately, I'm sort of left with this. I mean, is this just a barrage of great games that are all going to come and revive the Xbox brand, or is this just sort of smoke and mirrors from Xbox all once again? Of course, only time will tell. Time will also tell if these are even going to be profitable for the Xbox brand, if they will even succeed. A majority of these games from the showcase will be on Game Pass, and while I love this bargain Microsoft has been feeding us for years, numbers indicate that this model is not as big of a moneymaker for the hardware developer as many thought it would be, no matter the quality of the games on the subscription service anyways. All in all, grading the showcase by itself, surprisingly, and I'm a pretty tough grader, but I think this is a 10 out of 10 if I had to rate it. The main reason why I made this video, though, and just my final thing I want to say, and I think it's the biggest, is this Xbox game showcase was so huge, it's going to do one of two things for the Xbox brand. I think the first is Xbox could either see this PlayStation-like insurgence. Obviously, in the early 2010s, you saw the online services go down for the PS3, losing millions of users. Everybody flocked over to Xbox. Kind of an exaggeration, but you get my point. Millions of people did actually flock to Xbox, and in turn, PlayStation couldn't really find a way to get them back until they had a bunch of high quality games, whether that's The Last of Us, Uncharted, things along those lines. And this Xbox Game Showcase proves that that is actually possible at Xbox, and that maybe Xbox Game Pass is going to see a level of dominance we've never seen before. So that's just one of two things that could happen here. Now, I think the second thing that could happen here, and probably the most likely path this is going to take for Xbox, is people on PlayStation, which is obviously the most popular console out right now, could say, I don't want to spend an extra $200, $250 on an Xbox Series S, for instance, the cheapest console on the market by far, or, even get an Xbox Series X. I don't want to spend all that money on that and Game Pass, and instead I'm just going to wait for Xbox to publish a majority of these games onto PlayStation. And so, quite simply, you could see Xbox Game Studios probably being the best-selling publisher on PlayStation. So anyways, besides all that, guys, please feel free to comment down below your favorite games from the showcase, your least favorite games from the showcase, what you're most excited to play, and yeah, please feel free to even rip me to shreds regarding my list. I wouldn't mind. But I hope you enjoyed the video overall. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.